Welcome to Pylos in southern Greece, where we have got an exclusive opportunity to sea trial one of the most interesting yachts of recent years. This is the Arksen 85, a world-girdling super yacht built in the UK with the capability to go anywhere on the globe you wish to. My name is Hugo Andreae, you're watching Motorboat and Yachting. Let's go boating. For those of you who aren't yet familiar with the Arksen brand, they are all about adventure. And this boat in particular is built to explore anywhere in the world in almost any conditions. It has a huge range of over 7,000 miles. Theoretically, we'll find out if that lives up to the case when we do some performance figures. But it's also built to do that really efficiently and comfortably. Now, the build of the boat is aluminium. You can see it is, I think, about 40% recycled aluminium, but it is all welded. It is incredibly tough, no nonsense, simple to look after. So you'll notice that this is all just self-healing aluminium. It oxidizes slowly. That creates a kind of neutral surface. If you scratch it, it will oxidize again. There is very little maintenance to be done. It is also extremely tough. So below the waterline, it has 12mm thick plate. Above the waterline, it's 8mm, and then the superstructure, it's 6mm. Now, if you want to, you can take out all these weldings. You can have them polished down. The owner of this boat was not really interested in doing that. He wanted it to look tough and adventurous. And what's the point in trying to hide something when that is an integral part of its appeal? Now, it is also extremely seaworthy. Again, it's a Rob Humphreys design. It is designed to slip through the water very efficiently. They call it a low displacements to length ratio. So it has a very narrow frontal area that is designed to cut through the waves as efficiently as possible with minimal buoyancy so that it runs through the wave rather than bouncing over it. That encourages a very soft ride. And then it is nice and deep here, but then as you come back towards the stern, it lifts up, so it has a very minimal draft. That has two advantages. On the one hand, it means you're able to slip into relatively shallow bays without fear of grounding out. It also means that it runs through the water much more efficiently, because often the case when you have a deep transom, that creates a kind of trench behind the boat. You're displacing an enormous amount of water, and that creates unnecessary drag. So this is designed to slip through the water as seamlessly as possible. Let's take a little look inside then and see how it differs from that very commercial adventure style exterior to a very comfortable interior. Now let's start up on the bridge deck. Beautiful curved staircase leading up to here. Now you can fit this out pretty much how you want. One of the advantages of an aluminium boat is that there are no fixed bulkheads or structural points, so you can pretty much design it how you want to in terms of layout and space allocation. On this particular yacht, the owner wanted a kind of secondary galley up here, so you've got a big sink, you've got a couple of big refrigerated drawers in there. There is an ice maker under here, I believe, tucked under there. And then this lovely kind of open plan bridge deck. So you've got somewhere where everybody can sit around here. It's a huge chart table if you want it. You can eat here if you want to. You've got 360-degree visibility all the way around. Access out to the aft deck. We'll take a look outside in just a second, but it's all nicely air conditioned in here. Exactly the same 25mm thick glass here that provides both the heat insulation and the strength if you pile through a green wave. And trust me, on a really big ocean crossing, you will get certainly white, if not green water up here. And then what they've done here very cleverly, there's a second navigation station over on this side. So while somebody is physically helming the boat and keeping a lookout, whoever is doing the navigation planning can sit at this chart table here. You've got full access to all the electronics here. There's a red reading light, so at nighttime use, you can maintain your night vision. There is access under here for a chart drawer for all your printed charts. You've also got the electronic one there. You have access to the VHF, so you can communicate from here too. There's a second chart drawer in here. You can see they're all folded up, tucked away. Because when you're cruising around the world, you need everything with you. There's no point trying to buy stuff as you go along. You want to take the whole lot with you. And then the main helm station here. Now you can see we've got the blinds down. All of these are electronic blinds. They will drop at the flick of a switch. And this is the main helm station. 4 huge screens giving access to all the information you need. I'll talk you through some of that in a minute. Throttles, wheel, autopilot, but we'll talk through that when we actually get to drive the yacht. Let's carry on with the tour. Now, if we drop down onto the main deck, this interior is by a company called Design Unlimited, who do some very luxurious, they do a lot of the interiors for Sunseeker and Windy, for example. Now this here is a dayheads, perfectly positioned right by the entrance from the aft cockpit. There is a drying locker here for wet weather gear. When you come in, you can hang up your life jackets or dripping wet oilskins. This here is an airlock door. So if you're in particularly hot or cold countries, you can have that closed. So when you come in through this door here, you don't suddenly let a massive draft of hot or cold air through into the main saloon. You can keep that air conditioned. And likewise, in hot weather, you can keep the aft door open and still keep all the cool in here. Now this is a really unusual design. So a lot of space given over to the galley. On this boat, the captain and crew are very much part of the family, so it's all open plan. Normally, you would have a larger dining table forward, but in this instance, the owner has specified quite a small dinette right at the center of the yacht. Now, the point of that is because it has the area of the yacht that has the least movement, certainly in terms of pitching. This is the center of the pitch, so even when the boat is going up and down like this, right in the middle here, you're barely moving at all. The galley is extremely well specified. We've got a full height fridge in here, a full induction hob with retainers. Make sure your pans, pots and pans don't slip around. Microwave oven up there, full main oven, steam oven down there. Twin sink, commercial spec dishwasher that'll do an entire cycle in just 12 minutes. Massive storage space for your rubbish. Plenty of dry storage under there. And then rather cleverly, all the actual plates and crockery and so on are safely stored in these drawers here, closest to the actual dinette. You'll notice that everything is on positive latches, so when you press them shut, they won't then open in any kind of seaway. More storage over here. This is the kind of drinks area. So there is an ice maker down there. There are 2 fridge drawers here for the drinks. Got storage for drinks bottles, wine bottles, spirits and so on in there. Corkscrews and so on in there. Snacks in there. And glasses, I suspect, under here. All of those on little pull-out racks. So they're all safely with special fiddles to hold each glass in place. And then this area here, conventionally you would normally have a dinette area here, but because he's got that smaller dinette in the aft zone, he wanted just a lovely family space here. So plenty of lounging space all around. This is a movable ottoman. It has a bit of extra storage under there. We've also got a drawer under here. Can't see where the light, but there's more storage under the settee there. And one of the things he really loved was the fact that you get a view all the way through this boat. So whether you're sitting at the dinette here, whether you're cooking something up in the galley, you enjoy 360-degree views straight through the boat, because you're all effectively more or less on one level. There's a very small step there, but there's a view all the way through. It's not like you have a separate pilot house up on that side. And when they're gathered here in the evening and wanting a little bit of entertainment, there is a special little control here, if I can find it. It may not be switched on, but in there is a large TV that motors up, and then you have a full cinema effect. You can sit back anywhere around here. You'll notice there are surround sound speakers. There's a little Sonos speaker up there. There's a sound bar under the television over there. Another speaker in the corner there. You have the full surround sound cinema screen effect. And of course there are blinds that all lower down in sync together. I'll talk you through this helm station separately, but also worth pointing out, there is access out to the side decks from here with another big watertight door. Let's head down and see what it looks like underway, because it is pretty remarkable just how quiet it is down here. Now, I've opened up all these watertight doors, but underway for their Code Zero qualification, these are all watertight doors, so it's all compartmentalized so that if there is any breach of the hull, it can all be sealed off and kept watertight. Now, this is the owner's cabin in the aft part of the boat. In the standard layout, this can actually be an entire full beam cabin, and you'll see that this is the captain's cabin here, so you get an idea of just how big that can be. But the owner of this yacht was quite happy to have 2/3 of the beam dedicated to his cabin. But if you wanted to, you can have an opening through there with a pocket door that slides through, and then that space next door becomes an owner's desk or sort of office area with a Pullman bunk. But it has all been designed to be comfortable, but not over the top in terms of fancy finishes. It's all about cruising in safety and quiet and comfort, but not over the top luxury. So the owner has got a small desk area here, got a relatively modest sized TV, a nice little corner settee in this unit. The whole interior was done by Design Unlimited, but actually most of it was made in Antalya in Turkey. But lovely little combination of colours, very high quality woods and so on, but nothing overly fancy. We've got a little bedside table there. But most importantly, I wanted you to realise just how quiet it is down here. So I'm going to shut up for a minute. I don't know if you can hear that, but there's just a very slight hum. There's no vibration, no exhaust noise, just a quiet hum. But if we look through the window there, you can see we are cruising along at a fair old speed. Storage behind all of these. Have a very quick peek. You can see plenty of hanging space. Ensuite bathroom down here with a full steam room facility. Really nice, comfortable shower, but can be used as a steam room. Heads, sink, little pull-out drawers or shelves for toiletries and things. I won't nose in there. And then this is the other part of the cabin, which is on this boat a captain's cabin. He lives on board pretty much permanently, so really comfortable double bed, plenty of storage, has his own window. You can see we're still moving at speed. And even here, which has direct access to the engine room through this door here, it's still remarkably peaceful. Even in the bathroom here, there's a little window, really generous shower compartment, plenty of storage along here and under the bed. And then if we start moving forward, this is the first watertight door. You can see really heavy duty locks on those, and underway most of the time those would be closed. I've just opened them for a bit more convenient walkthrough. Rails along here to steady yourself in any kind of sea. Those Humphrey stabilizers are so effective that most of the time it's really not an issue. It's certainly not an issue now. We have a double cabin on this side. Both these cabins, there's one and another one opposite, can be either singles or twins. You can see this bed here is on rails or on a track system, so they can be separated and made into a twin. Storage all the way around. Smallish hull window, but gives a bit of natural light. None of these open, again, for safety reasons. In heavy seas, you don't want any ports being left open. You've got smart wooden blinds there, storage down there, full hanging locker behind, ensuite bathroom here. Exactly the same mirror cabin on this side. This one has been set up as a twin, so you can see the bedside table literally just moves the other side, and that bed can slide along on that track to make a double. Exactly the same layout, more storage. Very comfortable bathroom, plenty of natural light in here through that window. Good sized walk-in shower. Loo down there. And then if we come out of this, move forward, there's a big storage locker on either side for linen and laundry and towels and sheets and so on. Matching one on this side. Another watertight door leading through to what is conventionally either the crew quarters or guest cabins, in fact. But if we see here, we've got two really good sized bunks, and often you find that these are very narrow, but here we've got decent, they've got to be at least 3 foot wide mattresses or so on, so quite comfortable. Can actually be used as guest cabins if you want to use them. Still full ensuite facilities in here. Proper separate shower cubicle. There's no tiny minimalist crew heads here. You're not sleeping on top of the loo or anything like that. Really good sized sink. And very similar one on this side. Again, those generously proportioned bunk beds. Another ensuite cabin here. And this one, there's one significant difference here, and that is there is access through into the bow locker through there. So you've got access to all the anchor gear, the bow thruster, all of that. You can get direct access through that door. So that's the reason why this is more the sort of conventional crewing area. It's just this particular yacht that has that very special captain's cabin. But whilst we're down here, I also wanted to point out that even though it's beautifully finished and looks very smart, there is still access to all the yacht's systems. So under this floor here, if I reach down, I can hopefully lift that up one-handed. There is the fresh water tank. That is the drinkable one. It can link up with the main water tank, which is further forward, but you can see you've got access to all the pumps, all the systems. Put that one down and lift up this one here. Might have to get this side of this one. Oh, that strap, I'm just going to put that strap up there. That's what holds it in place. Again, really nice simple solution, nothing too fancy. So here we've got access to one of the big fuel tanks. This is the front end of that. We've also got storage, full medical facilities on board this boat. You can see we've got a defibrillator in there. I think it is a sort of medical subscription service, so it's fully supported if you need any advice on the go. You have access, 24-hour access to medical advice. The crew, and in fact, I believe the owner and captain are all fully qualified too in terms of first aid. It is a proper world cruising yacht, and if you're going to be offshore for weeks or even months on end, you need to think about things like that too. But the main thing I wanted to get across is just how quiet it is. underway. A lot of yachts, you don't want to be cruising at night. On this one, you're going to be cruising 24 hours a day. So having that level of refinement makes a massive difference. So we've come up to the bridge deck that is 2 decks above. We've got a very different layout than you'd conventionally find on most boats of this size. You can see there's no big ship's wheel here. We do have the throttles here, but this is the alternative. It's a very tiny little wheel. You can literally just turn it with your fingertip control. And unlike some steering systems, you have to sort of bring it back, so it will set permanently at 10 degrees left or right. Obviously, you can go all the way over to 45 degrees either way. You've also got a little joystick control here. If you just want to nudge it to port or starboard, that will then self-center afterwards. Of course, most of the time on a yacht like this, you're really going to be using the autopilot control here. But for the sakes of this sea trial, we're going to do it all manually and get a real feel for it. So let's put it into gear. Now, those two 350 horsepower engines are very low revving. At idle speed, the captain has set it at 750 RPM, and at that those revs, you will get 6 knots, and it uses almost no fuel at all. I can see that the pair of them together are burning just 10 litres per hour. So you're really doing 1.6 or 7 litres per nautical mile, which gives it that incredible efficiency. So even with very few revs on the engines, we're already doing 6 knots. But let's bring the speed up a little bit. Now, it's so quiet, I can't really hear the engines revving at all. I can just about feel a very slight shudder through the ship itself, just to give some kind of reassurance that the engines are running. I can't tell the revs at all. Again, it's almost impossible to hear them, so I have to have a look up here, see what we're doing. We're still only at 700. Oh no, there we go, sorry. No, goodness, I'm looking at the wrong figure altogether. Okay, so there we are. We're at 1100 RPM now. Just going to pick that up to 1200, which is a really comfortable cruising speed, because there are 1 or 2 little rev numbers where you feel a slight reverb. You get a little bit of dissonance, perhaps. I don't know whether that's the engines or the propellers, but sometimes you can feel it a little bit more than others. But now we've got just about 1200 RPM per engine, and the speed is still building. So we're now doing 10 knots, and at this speed, 10 knots, we are burning just 40 litres per hour. So it's that astonishing efficiency of that Humphreys yacht design hull, combined with a lightweight aluminium construction, that gives that efficiency. It just slides through the water very, very efficiently. Now, let's have a look how it handles. We have got the Humphrey electronic stabilizers switched on. Now, this being a displacement boat, if you're going quickly and go quickly into a corner, there's a chance the whole thing might lean out, and we have got a certain amount of weight up top because it's a tri-deck design. But let's try a full starboard turn. We're doing 10.5 knots. Let's go all the way over. It's just a matter of literally pulling that tiny little wheel round, and suddenly it's gone into a really quite tight turn. Now you can feel there is a little bit of outward lean, but what's impressive is just how quickly it's turning. We are already about halfway through the turn. We are turning in very little, probably just about 2 boat lengths. Now they have very special rudders, this, as well as being very large for the size of boat. They've also been shaped. They're I think it's called flow line rudders. So the rudders are actually shaped specifically to take advantage of the prop wash rather than being flat rudders. They're slightly curved to suit the exact prop wash of this particular boat. Now there we go, we've already done a 360-degree turn. You can probably see the wake of the boat. It is very little more, it's probably only about 1.5 lengths. Now to bring it back, I'm bringing the steering back, but because we've got a certain amount of momentum, I now need to just turn it to port a little bit just to kill that momentum, bring us back into a straight line. But the amazing thing is that it feels exactly the same at this speed, at 10 or 12 knots, as it does at 5 or 6 knots. There is almost nothing to tell you that you're going any quicker. The sound levels, the vibration levels, exactly the same. Now I've done a couple of calculations, and at this speed, at 10 knots, 1200 RPM, we're burning just under 40 litres an hour, about 36 litres an hour, and that will calculate as 3.6 litres per nautical mile. Now, don't forget that this boat holds 17,500 litres. So at 3.6 litres per nautical mile, you've got an effective cruising range of over 4,000 miles, even when you take off 20% of that for reserve. Make sure you've got sort of 15-20%, that's over 4,000 nautical miles. If you take it down to 8.4 knots, that brings the range up to 6,000 nautical miles. Or if you knock it all the way down to 6 knots, you've got 8,400 nautical mile range. And that still leaves 20% in reserve. So that gives you kind of idea of just how efficient and how capable it is. The next thing is to see if we can find some waves and really put the hull to the test. But in terms of cruising efficiency and refinement, it's absolutely bang on. So the afternoon breeze is starting to pick up a bit, and we've got a little bit of swell coming on. We've probably got somewhere between 1.5 and 2 foot, maybe building a little bit, but we're up on the bridge deck and you can just about see a tiny little bit of pitching, but it's very minimal and there's very little difference in the behaviour of the yacht. Certainly it's still as quiet and comfortable as ever, but let's go down onto the deck itself and see if we can get a slightly closer look at the action. Well, here we are out on the foredeck. The breeze is now whipping over my shoulders, but still there's very little movement. And one of the advantages of having that very narrow section bow is that it just cuts straight through it with very little interruption from the waves. There's no sort of pronounced up and down movement because there isn't a great deal of buoyancy up front, so it's not constantly trying to lift every time it encounters a wave. It's also very noticeable that those chines deflect any water that does come up the hull. As soon as it comes up the chines, it just deflects off sideways and gets thrown out. So really, although we're obviously nowhere near a sort of full storm force, it's probably a force 4 at the most, but we have got a couple of feet of waves and it's as comfortable here as it is anywhere else on board the yacht. Now we've just turned beam on to the sea to get a bit of an idea of how it behaves when the waves are coming at you from the side, and there is a bit more movement, but even though we're relatively high up, we're up on the bridge deck here, there's not a lot of roll. Now I presume we've got the stabilizers on at the moment. Could we switch those off?
Yeah.
Just see how much of a difference they make. Now straight away you can feel we are moving a bit more. Not overly dramatic, and I guess one of the advantages of building out of aluminium, it means that you haven't got so much weight and instability in the actual hull itself. So even though it's a tri-deck design, there's not an awful lot of weight rolling around on top. There is a bit more of a pronounced movement, but it feels totally secure. And the design itself does actually have positive buoyancy. So in theory, even if the whole thing gets knocked flat, it should eventually right itself and pop back up again. But shall we switch the stabilizers back on and see how much of a difference that makes? Give it a second or two and straight away they're starting to work. The horizon levels out and you're back to a very stable ride. So it helps if you've got a stable design in the first place. It helps even more if you've got those fin stabilizers doing some of the correcting for you. Now, one of the noticeable things is that when you do turn hard, you do start to get a little bit of lean. It takes a tiny moment or two for the stabilizers and interceptors to level up. So in that respect, it is more almost like a kind of naval ship. You get a little bit of lean out to the side before it all corrects again. Can we do another quick hard turn to port? You can probably just see the horizon starting to roll a tiny bit before the fins and the interceptors kick in and levels everything up again. Oh, there you are, you're putting a bit of lean on for us there. But that is because you've got such sensitivity with this tiny little steering wheel that you can make quite dramatic movements with minimal effort, and those big rudders are certainly extremely effective. So I've just been doing a few figures, performance figures on this boat, and there's some really fascinating facts that have come out of it. Now, probably one of the most interesting is I've taken sound readings all the way through from idle speed at 750 RPM all the way through to the maximum of 1800 RPM. The difference, 1 decibel from idle speed through to maximum speed. That is unheard of. So at idle speed, it's 51 decibels, flat out, it's 53 decibels. But there is no change at all between 750 RPM and 1400 RPM. So at the main cruising speed, it's exactly the same noise, which is frankly virtually silent all the way through. It's only when you get to 1500 RPM, it goes up to 52, and at 1800 RPM, up to 53 decibels. Even so, 53 decibels is barely loud enough to hear. That is remarkable. Now, the other thing is fuel consumption. So at idle speed, you're burning just 10 litres per hour. At flat out, at 1800 RPM, that's up to 120 litres per hour. But the crucial thing is, again, in that cruising zone between about 6 knots and about 12 knots, the numbers are, again, unbelievably low. Well, believably low, but really efficient. So at 750 RPM, it is burning 10 litres per hour, giving you 1.66 litres per nautical mile. At 1000 RPM, you're doing 8.4 knots and burning 2.4 litres per nautical mile. At 1200 RPM, their preferred cruising speed, you're doing 10 knots and burning 3.6 litres per nautical mile. So it just gives you a lovely cruising range from 6 to 10 knots, all at the kind of consumption figures that are barely going to make an impact. Obviously, it makes a bit of a difference once you extrapolate it in terms of the range, but even so, at 6 knots, you've got a range of 8,400 miles with 20% in reserve. At 1000 RPM, you've got 6,000 nautical miles with 20% in reserve. And at 1200 RPM and 10 knots, you've got around about 4,000 nautical miles with 20% in reserve. So they genuinely does live up to that claimed 7,000 nautical mile range, certainly if you're prepared to keep the speed down to around 8 knots. Impressive numbers for a boat of this size. Let me show you another cool feature on this boat. Now, the idea of having a second helm station down here, the owner wanted it to be really discreet. So when it's in sort of socializing mode, like it is here, you've got the high-low TV there, you've got an uninterrupted view forward and this lovely wrap of seating all the way around. But if you want to either join in the party so that you can helm the boat and still be part of that kind of social hub, or if it's so rough that you decide you want a slightly lower helming position, there is an entire separate helm station here. You just lift up this panel here and you have full use of a second helm station down here. You've got the throttles here, you have the steering using the joystick there, and then this very cool setup here. So this is obviously the main navigation screen. You've got all the information you need there, but with this one touch button here, you can instantly switch the screen over to the systems mode. So here you've got access, you can see what the exterior lights are doing, you can turn them on, you can turn them off, you can see which ones are switched on. Same with nav lights. You can flick on to the engine controls to see exactly what speed, what the boost pressure is for the turbo, the coolant temperature, the oil pressure, the fuel rate, the starter batteries, all easily visible. Move over to the fuel system. Here you've got a full overview of all the tanks. We've got the bunkering tanks here, the main fuel tanks, the day tanks over here. You've got all the transfer switches, all the pumps. You can do it all electronically from here too. Got the fresh water system. You've got the drinking water, a separate tank for the drinking water, and then the two main freshwater tanks on this side. You can see exactly at a glance how much you've got in each of them. There is the wastewater system. So you've got the black water tank, we've got the sludge tank, got the waste oil, grey water, separate tanks for all of them, and of course that sewage processing plant, which means you can purify the water, take the water out of the waste, pump that overboard, and retain the sludge in the tank itself. We've got the vents, the engine room temperature, the exhaust fan, the intake fan, keeping that engine room cool and fed with plenty of fresh air. Got doors, hatches, that shows you what's open or what's closed. Here we can see that these two doors are open. These are the watertight doors. This one obviously closed green, so when they're closed they're green, when they're open they're red, as well as the aft hatches, all of those. Full overview of all the bilge and all the bilge pump systems. Alarms, that shows you when an alarm has triggered, it shows you exactly what it was, when it was, what the problem was. And of course you've got the setting system where you can change everything or fine-tune things to suit. So fantastic to have all this oversight, and then if you want to flick back to the navigation screen at any point, you just press that one button there, give it a couple of seconds, computer thinks about it, and up comes the navigation screen again. Such a good idea just to have a one-touch button shortcut straight through so you can flick quickly from one screen to the next. Access to the engine space is either through the captain's cabin or from this platform here. You can see really heavy-duty watertight door giving access into this space here. Now this is the workshop and lazarette, the main engine room. There is a secondary watertight door leading through into that, but here you've got a lot of the boat's systems. Now some of this is simple practical stuff. We've got the laundry over in the corner there. We've got extra refrigeration freezers down there. We've also got a pre-filter system for the water. There obviously are water makers on board, but it also stores 6,000 litres of fresh water on board. So those are the primary filters for that. We've got a full commercial hydraulic steering system. All the steering mechanism is along here, but you've got full redundancy. You've got two separate tanks in there, hydraulic tanks. So if one goes, you can use the other. You can even strip the whole thing down, set the rudders in the fixed position and steer it manually if you need to. But just look at all this beautiful done pipework. We've got manual levers for everything. You've got complete override control. And then over on this side, we have an air compressor for the diving tank. You've got the full toolkit available here. We've even got a drill, vise, absolutely everything you need to make repairs on the go. That is there so that you can refill the dive tank bottles on the actual platform, and you can see the dive tanks all stored up on that rack through there. And then another big watertight door leading into the engine space itself. Now this is really the heart of the yacht, and it is quite spectacular. We have twin 350 horsepower Scania engines. They are very low revving. They're big 9-litre 5-cylinder engines, 350 horsepower each on V-drive, slightly unusually. You can see they're sloping backwards, so the shaft runs out there through a gearbox and back out under the boat. Now that does create a little bit of extra friction, but they reckon that the wins in terms of having a really near horizontal shaft line out the back of the boat, huge 1-metre propellers and big tunnels that allow them to run almost horizontally, gives it a really efficient running attitude. Got the big halyard exhaust here, and then lots of detailing. Let's have a little bit of a look. These are the big raw water inlets. You can see each of those is big enough to supply both engines if needs be. So if one gets blocked, you can clear it out, and one of those will provide more than enough water to run all the cooling systems necessary. We've got a big hot water calorifier here. We have twin chiller units there. We've got this is a diesel heater mechanism, so as well as using, if you want to add extra heat, you can use diesel, but in the meantime these two reverse cycle air conditioning units can both provide the cool air and the warm air. Over here we have got twin water makers, so as I mentioned earlier, we've got 6,000 litres of water on board anyway with a spot zero cleaning system, but this will actually create water, it will desalinate it as you go. We have twin generators here. These are 28 kilowatts each, Kohler generators, again both over spec, so each one of these can power all the yacht's hotel loads if you need it. Full bespoke system for managing everything. You have full access to all the fuel tanks, the water, everything you need from here too. So you can see now fuel tanks. We can have a very quick look at this. There are 4 main bunker tanks, 2 day tanks. So 16,500 litres of fuel in the bunker tanks, 500 litres each in the 2 day tanks. We'll talk a little bit about the fuel filtration system in a minute. Now here is most of the fuel system. So first thing, when the fuel comes in, it goes through the main filter system here. That will take out any impurities or water. On the way in through the day tanks, these are the 2 day tanks, port day tank, and the starboard day tanks obviously over on the other side. But each of these also have filters, so they get filtered again on the way out of the day tank to the engines. So really the chance of anything getting through into the engines itself is pretty much minimal. We've got huge high power pumps that will pump up to 200 litres of fuel a minute. We've also got a secondary smaller one, and we've even got a manual pump. So there are 3 different means of transferring fuel around. All of those are on electronic valves, but they also have manual overrides if you want to, so you can physically change all the valves and manually pump it through if you need to. Got a full hydraulic power unit. This is for the bow thruster. There's a really powerful hydraulic bow thruster. We've got electronic stabilizers, so this is purely for the bow thruster and the anchor windlass. Again, you've got full override. In fact, you've got 2 power takeoffs on each of the engine. So if one of the engines isn't running for any reason, you've still got full power takeoff on each of them individually. And over here is the sewage system, so full sewage treatment plant effectively. So all the black and grey water that comes through here, it is injected with a special sort of degrading chemical. It goes through a flotation tank that is aerated. All the solids get transferred down into this tank and compressed. All the water is treated with a UV light that runs along this tube, makes it completely sterile, so the liquids can be pumped overboard perfectly safely, solids stored until you need to either discharge them on land or when you're well out into the ocean. Now let's go back here because there is more to see. If we come through past the engines into this room here, another watertight door, which I'm hoping I can do one-handed. And this comes through into the battery room. Now again, a fully sealed battery room. You can see we've got watertight doors on both sides, all air conditioned, because this has enough capacity to run all the ship's hotel loads, certainly in any kind of normal usage. We have 40 kilowatt hours of lithium iron phosphate batteries, which should guard against any kind of thermal runaway, but you'll notice the whole thing is sealed, it is airtight. We've got extractor fans, fully insulated. We have a fire suppression system, so really doubled up on safety. We've got the charger systems, inverter chargers, so these will convert the 24-volt battery power that can run the ship systems, will convert it into AC power for mains voltage. We've got the Victron energy system, which means that whatever feed you take from the shore, whether you're in the US or Europe or anywhere around the world, that will automatically convert it into the correct voltage and hertz to charge all the batteries. But the beauty of that is these are all boosted by the solar panels on board the yacht, so they're constantly being fed. They can run all the ship systems, and of course you've got those generators too. When Arksen started designing this boat, they had 4 key characteristics in mind. They were capability, refinement, efficiency, and safety. And when we first looked around it, there were a lot of claims about how fuel efficient it was, how quiet it was, and how capable it was at sea. But until we've actually been out on it and proved it, those are only claims. But today, we've been out, and sure, the conditions weren't hugely challenging, but it has enabled us to prove a number of key things. First up, it really is as quiet as they say. Figures of around 51 to 52 decibels are absolutely minimal. In terms of comfort, there's no doubt about it. We were in 1.5 meter seas maybe, but even so, it was so civilized. There's no hint of slamming. It's incredibly comfortable. There's just the bare minimum of pitching. And at least when you've got those stabilizers on, there's very limited roll. But also crucially, in terms of fuel efficiency, we have proved that it is capable of those very low numbers, around about 2 to 3 litres per nautical mile at a cruising speed of somewhere between 6 and 9 knots. Okay, not hugely rapid, but that is what this boat is designed for. And that does give you that immense cruising range of anywhere between 4,000 miles at 10 knots and 8,000 miles at kind of 6 or 7 knots. In terms of seakeeping, okay, we haven't proved particularly that it's capable of pushing its way through ice flows or dealing with force 8 winds, but the captain assures me he has been out in some really snotty weather and it has delivered everything they've said. So hats off to them. It does do all those things it claimed to do. Obviously, this is not a cheap boat. Starting price is around £8.5 million, and you do sacrifice a certain amount in terms of overall volume. It hasn't got that nth degree of luxury and finish. It isn't full of marble and polished stainless steel and mirror smooth surfaces. It is quite rough and ready. But if you want to, you can have the welds polished out, you can have it faired and painted and everything else. But that's not really the point of this boat. The point of this boat is to use it to go exploring and have minimal hassle looking after it and maximum capability and enjoyment. And for the owner of this boat, that is exactly what he's looking for. So you take your choices, you pay your money, you decide what kind of a boat you want. If you want a hardcore explorer yacht with world cruising capability, then this absolutely has that.